Hello everyone and welcome back to a new episode. This time we're going to talk about a pretty serious sailor topic, which is the Strait of Messina. For hundreds of years the Strait of Messina has been mythological and full of legends due to the difficult situations that you can face in the strait. Today we know there are no sea monsters, but still there are a lot of things that you have to pay attention when you want to go through the Strait of Messina. So today we're not only going to tell you our story about how we went through, but also all the tips and tricks so you can do it yourself. Enjoy! So this was it for Bolivia Marina. We did not stay here very long. The night was quite okay, a little bit shaky. You can feel we're not used to stay at anchor anymore, but we're getting back there definitely. And yeah, we're lifting up the anchor and go on direction Tropea. So today we're going to make the Strait of Messina. So one challenge after the other.
Let's see. So we are going.
We had a pretty nice sail until now, and now that we're getting closer to the strait, we could already see from afar a lot of more waves, and we knew there was some wind predicted from the north, but unfortunately it's a lot more stronger than predicted. So currently we have about 20 knots of wind, so that's not really nice, and we have to go against it. We still have about 15 nautical miles to go until we are at the actual strait, where we need to be at around 4 to 5 p.m. so in about 4 to 5 hours to get the right moment to be able to pass the strait. For now we're going to try to adjust the sails and hope, to make it through this wind and waves, and hope that it will slowly calm down. So why am I talking about the right time? Let's start from the basis. The Strait of Messina is actually where the Ionian and the Tyrrhenian Sea meet. The interesting thing is that both seas have alternating tides, so when the one sea is on high tide, the other one is on low tide, and that can create those interesting currents in the Strait of Messina. Normally these tides do alternate every 6 hours, so depending if you want to go through the north or from the south side, you have to look up which tide is obviously favorable for yourself. In general, it's always good to pass the strait when the tides are changing into your direction, so also your direction is not that strong yet. It's never good to pass when either of the two sides are on a high tide, because then the currents are really strong and you can face some trouble. There is a website where you can look up those tides. I will put it in the description. It's really easy to use and you can perfectly calculate the time which is best for you to travel through the Strait of Messina. So we just entered the south part of, well, it's not a strait yet, it's kind of leading to the strait, but we are now between mainland and the island. And as there are a lot of kites, I was constantly looking out and I was super lucky to spot some dolphins. Unfortunately they did not stay long, probably are too boring when there are so many waves around, but at least they came to say hi, and we were definitely looking out to see some dolphins on this trip. Yes, dolphins, and not only. The Strait of Messina is actually full of a lot of fish. It's actually also full of sailfish. So if you ever want to see those jump around, the Strait of Messina is really a good place to go. Which obviously also means there are a lot of fish around. So keep your eyes out. They have really small boats and they feel pretty at home in the Strait of Messina. So they might also be pretty much in the middle where you would not expect them. So always keep a lookout for them. Do you think it will start to rain?
It went so quickly from nothing to rain and looks like super stormy. We have like 25 knots of winds. Fortunately the waves calmed down, but we still have to fight against them, and we like, yeah, not a good possibility to sail because like the channel is full of big boats, and yeah.
The weather in the Strait of Messina does add a new level of difficulty to sailing. Due to its geographical location between these two land masses, it does really create an unstable weather window, so always be on the lookout for clouds and fog around you. Be prepared to enter with sun like we did, and yeah, to be in rain after a short while after it. Besides that, fog can be a really big problem, which is especially dangerous because there is a lot of traffic in the Strait of Messina. Speaking of traffic, the Strait of Messina is divided into traffic lanes, which are kind of divided by this virtual center line. If you're coming from the north, you should keep closer to Sicily, while if you're coming from the south, you should be closer to the mainland of Italy. If you're a sailboat or in general a recreational boat, keep as close as possible to the land and pay attention to the ferries, which do actually go from east to west and west to east, which do add a little bit more tricky to all this big mess of traffic. In general, just be really aware of where you're going between these fishermen that are everything, the big ferries that are going from east to west, and the big tankers who are going through the strait. There's a lot to have you pay attention to. If you really want to change direction in the channel, there's actually a roundabout where you can do it, but honestly we never saw anybody do that, so especially with a sailboat, we could not recommend that. Last thing about traffic, if you enter the channel, remember to call beforehand the VTS just to let them know that you're entering. You don't really have to do that when you're a smaller sailboat, it's not required. We always prefer to do that. It's just nice for them to know that you're in there, and it's also really nice for you. So if there is any bigger thing happening, like a whale passing, they can inform you about that. Moreover, always keep your radio on, because there's a lot of information going around which could also be useful for you as a sailboat.
So the current is against us because we are going like with 2,000 rounds and are only going like 3 knots. Before it was even 2.5, but it should go with us quite quickly.
So we are arriving at the more critical part now, when we're actually going into the Strait of Messina. You already start to see the different currents getting in right now, and you hear them all speaking at the radio. But for now we have to be very careful. We have to look forward and look at the different currents. Right now we are in a rather calm moment, so the current is currently changing. And so you can see those little patches where it changes. We already passed now one, and yeah, you could really see how the steering wheel dropped and then it's coming back. So it's not dangerous right now, but it's also not nice, so we try to look forward and try to avoid them. Now we come to the interesting part, the part that has fueled all those myths about sea monsters. We are talking about the different currents and whirlpools and whatever that can form in the Strait of Messina due to these two different currents. The interesting thing is that actually those two seas, so the Tyrrhenian Sea and the Ionian Sea, they have different physical chemical properties, so the different salinity and temperature and density. That's why they kind of overlap and don't really mix with each other. So in the Strait of Messina, sometimes the current that you see and the current that you actually feel on the boat is not the same, because those two seas just kind of overlap each other. And depending on which one is prevailing right now, you have a stronger current in one of the two directions. There are actually two main interferences that can happen. They're called horizontal and vertical interferences. The horizontal ones do create mainly waves, which are kind of okay as long as the wind are not too strong. But obviously most of the time in the Strait of Messina there is wind, so keep an eye out also for those waves. The more problematic ones are the vertical interferences, which do create those whirlpools that we experienced also ourselves. They were pretty calm when we experienced that, but already feeling how your steering wheel is just being pushed away, it's not just a nice feeling, so I don't want to experience a bigger one, honestly. These interferences can actually be seen by the eye, and they're sometimes a lot stronger than you might think. They actually do rip up seaweed, and sometimes they say you can even see fish fly around due to those waves, so keep an eye for it. We already saw some smaller fisher boats kind of a little bit trapped on those wheels, and that's not fun at all.
Just crazy, like the second boat now with this crazy mast and the nose in front, and we believe it's fishermen checking for sword or sailfish, something like that, but it's like absolutely crazy. Like there are 3 people on top, it's shaking, one is in the bridge in front, totally crazy. I'll show you.
We did it! We are out of the strait!
Yeah, it's quite tired.
We're celebrating with something landish from the land, which we have not.
Terrible.
Something that we have not eaten for quite some time.
I'll be here in a year.
That's more than a year. We never bought those stuff.
No.
Happy strait passing! That was it. I hope you liked this episode. Let us know in the comments if you kind of like this mixture between storytelling and actual facts about the strait or the place that we are visiting. If you want to know more about the strait, we actually wrote a really long blog post about it. I'm a little nerd and engineer, so I love all the physics behind it and wrote it down in those blog posts. You can find it in the description, and in the same blog post you actually also find 5 tips which are really useful to pass, and kind of 5 steps that you need to carry out in order to safely pass the Strait of Messina. Thanks again for watching. If you want and if you liked it, do subscribe, it really means a lot to us. See you next week!